Welcome back, everyone, to Figuring Out the Formula. I'm your host, Kyle. I'm here with Chandler and Patrick. As always, boys, the Japanese Grand Prix. What a snooze fest. I'm not saying the racing was bad. I'm just saying that it was the time for us Americans. It sucked ass. We'll jump into that in a little bit, but let's raise one up. Cheers, boys. No sake for Pat, I see, unfortunately. The Japanese way, dude.
I need to buy some more, but I can't go to the liquor store at 1 o'clock in the morning, unfortunately. So I can't respect the Japanese. But
was that like a personal, like you can't go there, or you like are banned from going to the liquor store at 1 a.m.?
It could be both.
Okay, fair.
Unfortunately, this time I just didn't have time because it was so fucking late.
A real say situation. We're stuck with burning the midnight oil.
Dude, so a little shout out to the little fur ball. I got a Labrador puppy the weekend of the Japanese Grand Prix, and it kind of was good because he woke up every hour. So I woke up in time for the start of the race, and then I woke up in time for the restart of the race, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then I woke up to see the end. So that was just, that's how God intended, I guess. I don't know, but I hate that time. I hate the start time, and the Chinese Grand Prix, which is the next race in a couple weeks. That's even later or earlier, depending on which way you look at it. I know this is an American take, Pat. I know, but
yeah, you're American as hell right now.
These times suck ass. Okay.
Yeah, it does. It does, but that's the rules of F1 because they can't have the tracks lit up everywhere, which sucks. But what are you gonna do about it?
Get lights on the track.
We can't all have Daytona everywhere
with
hella lights. People don't want to put lights on their pretty tracks. They want to race in the daytime, and so sometimes we get screwed.
Okay, say what you want. I agree, but Suzuka is a beautiful track. It's a great track, and honestly, the drivers, a lot of them commented like, "Yeah, this is one of our favorite tracks. It's the most like not technically challenging, but it's got its like quirks, right? I think that's the word I'm looking for. That it has their quirks of the track.
Yeah, good racecraft requires some fast spots, some tight corners. The only Formula One track to go in two different directions and being a figure eight track. So
it beats Wreckfest. I got that on my PC going, and buddy, with my steering wheel, I have a sim going. It's a Logitech, right? Like it's not a real sim, but buddy, I think I'm gonna flip my desk over when I'm doing Wreckfest figure eights and all that. So I can only imagine how bad I'd be at Suzuka, but
I'm surprised you haven't pulled the trigger on I think it's like $150,000 Aston Martin simulator that they're selling.
Well, yeah, just pull out 150K out of my back pocket.
You know why they're selling those, right? They're selling that to pay for Adrian Newey's offer. Did you guys see? So Lawrence Stroll, Lance Stroll's father, whatever. Okay, he's got some other titles. He's head of Aston Martin Racing, whatever. It doesn't matter. CEO,
James Bond villain.
Yeah, basically, Dick. I think that's what his nickname is. Just asshole, but whatever. Lawrence Stroll apparently made Adrian Newey an offer he could refuse, but he shouldn't have. But he could. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is this offer. We didn't see what the actual figures were, but it was astronomical for Adrian Newey to leave Red Bull Racing and go over to Aston Martin. Pat, did you were keeping up when Max Verstappen got his huge contract? Explain a little bit about like how that compares to what Adrian Newey is being offered right now.
Yeah. So, if I remember correctly, people were saying that, this is obviously just a rumor, but we love rumors. The money that Stroll was offering to Newey was about the same as Max Verstappen is getting, which for those of you that don't know, Max Verstappen makes $50 million a year in just his race contract with Red Bull. The Oracle sponsorship they signed at the same time as they re-signed Max was just to basically pay Max. That's one sponsor just going straight to Max. So an astronomical amount of money to be made. But personally, I think there's no shot he would go there. Unless there's just some act of God, because the only other thing I've ever heard that guy say was he wanted to design a Ferrari one day, but I mean, who even knows if that happens?
Yeah, so
I would think
Chandler, you might be thinking on the same page I am. Red Bull's had a lot of drama going on recently. So is that where you were heading?
that was part A of what I was saying. Is that
Okay.
there is a lot of drama with Red Bull, but in addition, is that Adrian wrote about this in his book that he released a few years ago. Great book, How to Build a Car. But the last chapter, kind of the epilogue of that, is basically about how he wanted to expand outside of just Red Bull and do some other stuff. So he actually is the lead designer for the Aston Martin Valkyrie. He's the one that helped design that, just because he wanted to do some other projects outside of Formula One, and struck up a partnership with none other than the Aston Martin team, and the Aston Martin racing team was helped involved with that to make sure that Adrian knew he wasn't like stealing any Aston Martin secrets, would not that he would need any Aston Martins.
Yeah.
But he does have a partnership, or at least had a partnership. I don't know if that's ongoing, but he does have prior work experience with the Aston Martin family and Aston Martin brand.
Just some extra details here. So the Aston Martin Valkyrie, that's basically the Le Mans 24-hour Le Mans, 24-hour Daytona. It's that prototype. So it's in like one of the lead classes for that. So same effect. It's got to be.
I think that's what Max was driving whenever he.
When he got pulled over going.
Pulled over.
Which we thought. Which we talked about that earlier, but like we thought he was going
last season. Yeah.
Yeah, it was last season where we thought he was going like insane amount, and we figured out what a fucking kilometer was.
That's right.
So okay, he was only going like 35 miles an hour, but whatever. Still a great story.
As an Adrian Newey car, Aston Martin, trust me, like that's the first thing I thought of was like, if Red Bull is a tumultuous sea of what is going to happen next, and he's already worked with Aston Martin, and now you're throwing me a contract that is generational wealth. All roads lead to Rome. That's
So our two favorites are McLaren and Red Bull. That's McLaren, Team McLaren right here. You got Chandler and myself. Red Bull, you got Pat. That's our number one team. The low-key person that we always want to root for, the underdog, if you will, has and I would like to say always will be Williams. Just because they're looking promising, they're honest about what they're doing and what stage they're at. So last episode, we talked about some of the struggles that Williams was having. One of those being that Alex Albon had crashed and they only had one chassis in Australia. So James Vowles, the team principal, basically sat Logan Sargent on the bench for the race. So one, that's shitty as hell. It's shitty that you only have one chassis, but that's shitty that you sat your driver. Okay. Shit happens. It's got to be like the only headlines that we'll see from Williams, right? The one chassis thing that kind of just stayed on theme. So like during the Japanese Grand Prix, there was quite a few instances where we saw the team orders at Williams again. Logan Sargent, after being benched, still halfway around the world, flies into Japan thinking, finally I get my car back. Pat, what do we see happened to Williams and Logan Sargent? As soon as the plane touches down, not a lickety second after.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically as soon as, people started gearing up for the Japanese race, it comes out that Alex Albon's going to keep Logan Sargent's chassis, and Logan Sargent would then get Alex Albon's repaired chassis, which obviously is not as good. It's not, whole. It's been broken before.
Yeah.
I mean, and Logan Sargent, like he already had a bad incident at the Japanese Grand Prix last year. Like he couldn't even make it around like one lap of the track without crashing. So, I mean, I bet he was just immediately getting, terrible flashbacks and PTSD, knowing he was already going to have the ruined chassis that was, rebuilt, which, I would assume that Williams can rebuild it pretty structurally, but it's always just, it's not 100%. And then it just doesn't stop from there for Williams.
Bro, just think, right? Like you get rear-ended. Pause. Your car gets rear-ended. It's gonna squeak for days, dude. Like you're always gonna hear a weird noise. It's always gonna squeak. It's not gonna seem like it's riding correctly.
The door doesn't shut as smooth as it used to. Like
you can't roll up your window.
Yeah. You have to use a suction cup at the airport whenever you're flying to a race or something. Yeah, whatever it might be, right? Like there's all these examples of
where you got that from.
Yeah. Or that way. I don't know which way it goes, but yeah, sure.
Up like that. Yeah.
Okay, well let's go that way then. We're pointing at Chandler. That's the moral of the story. But anyways, yeah, it sucks, dude. You're not racing the last race. You get to this race and they dipped your car, or they dipped someone else's car in rice to get the water out. Like you got cracks. It sucks. But what's even worse is last week when they benched him, Alex Albon didn't score a fucking point. Yeah. The whole point was he gave Williams the best chance to score a point and didn't score a point. Well, this week was no fucking different. They gave him the virgin car, the good car, the untainted car, if you will. And what happens at the start of the race? He fucking is out. Granted, I'm getting ahead of myself. The start of the race happens, and Alex Albon and Daniel Ricciardo jockeying for positions. So this track is a little different because turn 1 can go all the way up to 4 wide at some parts. Mm-hmm. You get to turn 2, and it can only be side by side. So two cars. So it goes from four cars wide to 2 cars wide in one turn, basically. Pat, explain a little bit. Never mind, you didn't watch.
I saw it.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Pat, explain a little bit about what we saw between turn 1 and turn 2.
So lap 1, turn 1, which obviously is always going to be chaotic. And, as Kyle was saying, this is a very tough part of the track. These S's, so to speak, comprise 3 to 4 turns. They're probably one of the most technical parts of the F1 calendar anyways already, which is hard enough. And Daniel Ricciardo essentially just gets into a sandwich. He checks left to see who's to his left and then says, oh shit, there's a car right there, and tries to break off a little bit to the right side of the track. But Alex Albon had already stuck his nose halfway up Danny's car and there was no backing out. It was just too late from there. And then Danny makes his move without acknowledging Albon, and then they both crash. And, as much as I want to say, oh, they're fucking donkeys, they're stupid, they crash like I always do, it's just a racing incident. That's actually that's one of the very few like actual turn 1, lap 1 racing incidents we've seen the last like 2 years. And sucks.
Yeah, it's rare, right? Like they claim racing incidents left and right. Like there's no tomorrow. Oh, it's just an incident. Well, it's not just an incident most of the time. Most of the time, someone tried to dive bomb or someone didn't look and got over, whatever it might be. I agree, Pat, with your synopsis that there was no real fault here. Even though Daniel Ricciardo went to the right on top of the nose of Albon, I don't, it's not like they have a spotter telling them.
I'm going to say, if you had to put blame, we put it on Ricciardo, but at the end of the day, it's nobody's to blame.
Yeah. It's just shitty. Like I started this rant, soapbox, whatever, talking about how Logan Sargent, he just keeps getting screwed. Well, lo and behold,
I was going to say, so now Williams, here you go. Your good car is toast after a turn and a half. And now, all right, now you're left with your
You're
lesser of
Raggedy
two
Ann doll.
drivers,
Yeah. It's
lesser
just-
of two drivers turning around, putting a duct tape together car. It almost like the episode of SpongeBob with the guy like all taped up, like wanting to buy or wanting to like. That's what William had.
Chocolate. Are they selling chocolate?
yeah,
It's like
it's just
it's awful. Like just bandaged together of like, all right, Logan, just bring it home so that we have a chassis to race in China. So
which, dude, do they not have like, I know they use Excel to track their parts, but do they not have like, they need travels with Stacy to get them like some
amen,
trips
brother.
so they can get the fucking car more chassis over there. Like, what are we
That's
doing,
right.
bro?
They need to
Um,
like contact Angie's List or something. Like
Something. It's crazy.
They I sent it in our group text message of somebody. I don't know if they said it at Australia, and I don't know if we talked about it or if it was after the fact. Somebody put on social media, there was a report that basically said that they weren't going to name the team names, but had the same situation in Australia happened to 3 other teams, like a wreck like that in Australia, then 3 other teams would have been SOL without a car for Japan or for Australia.
I did see that. It's
I think that we can all assume that Haas is one of the other teams, as well as Sauber, Kick, Stake, whatever they're going by now. I'm curious who that third team is that would be without.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And they even had contact together during the Japanese Grand Prix. Alpine. I really do think that Alpine is the third team that you're talking about, because it's a shitty car. 1, 2, they're in the mix, right? Like they're not the mix, they're in the mess is what I meant to say. They're in the back. They're maybe in the midfield, depending on the tire strategy, like what part of the race everyone else pits, they rise up to the middle. Like,
Okay, you're talking about individual races.
I'm not saying finishing
Not in the midfield of the.
no,
points.
I'm saying like during the race, like they might get up to the middle, right? But they're still in the shit of things. Like they're in the thick of it.
Yeah. And I would be remiss. Point number 4 is, because I have to say this every episode. Point number 4 is Alpine stinks. Like,
Well,
I have to say it. That's what it is. Let's call it spade.
It's a fact. Yeah, it's a fact. So we mentioned the Albon Ricardo accident that turned the race into a red flag. So they did a standing restart. Great, love those. But it's not good for some teams, because some teams just shit themselves. They shit down their pants and they don't know what to do. Well, Alpine is one of those teams, because Chandler, Alpine
stinks.
and they ran into each other. Yes. Alpine drivers running into each other.
It's like Australia last year, baby.
I was going to say something we've seen before, so it's nothing new. So they know how to do it and do it well. Luckily, it wasn't like huge damage or anything like that, but it was worth mentioning in my opinion. Now, enough of the negative stuff. Pat, I want to talk a little bit about Yuki Tsunoda. So Yuki Tsunoda, Japanese driver, it's his home race. He tends to show out when it's his home race. Like he can put on a show. He drives like the driver like we thought he could be, but isn't consistently being. Well, that's the same thing here. So during this Japanese Grand Prix, Yuki Tsunoda and his pit crew, huge shout out to the VCARB RB pit crew. They had a banger of a stop on a Williams. So explain a little bit about what happened and why it's so significant, even just one place where they're at.
Yeah. So there was chaos in the pits this week. I had to actually like go and look at diagrams of how many places and things like that people gained and lost. It was a bit crazy. If there were some serious bangers of pit stops, like almost under 2 seconds from I think the main Red Bull team.
Wait, I want to interrupt because Kick Sauber, they set the record for the longest pit stop. Well, they got to 4 seconds.
Hey,
Let's go,
yeah.
buddy. Okay, all right, continue. I just wanted huge shout out to them for being shitty but better than they were.
So yeah, it was a bit after the halfway point of the race, and I think like 5 cars came into the pits at the same time, and Yuki was almost at the back of those, and then just puts on a banger of a pit stop and jumped up like 3-4 places, I think. I think it was 3 drivers gained like 3 spots, and 2 of them just got screwed. Which is chaos in the pits. I love it. I love pit stops. And then Yuki actually ended up, carrying that on, finally getting a point, which that was the first time I think a Japanese drivers did that. I don't even know how many years, since like 2008, 2007.
Yeah, it was either, I want to say 2008, but I also am not a real reporter, so it doesn't really matter what I say. It's part of the fun of doing this. Yeah, exactly. We just say allegedly and it's fine. So allegedly, I guess this is the shit on Williams episode, because just when you thought I was out, they pulled me right back in. That was bad, I know. Sorry. If you're listening, please don't unfollow for that. But anyways, Logan Sargent, the only car remaining for Williams, if you even want to call it that. It's put together looking like puzzle pieces. On lap 42, he got super aggressive on the curb, and it got a little bit of oversteer and went right into the sand. Normally, when you hit sand or gravel, your day is done. Like you're stuck. I don't know if he just has missed so many turns this year. He knows the perfect bite on the clutch to get it in reverse and to not spin and dig a hole. But by God, Logan Sargent, he's fucking toe mater. He can drive backward. He's a world's best backwards driver.
That is a Florida man who knows his back roads
better
than anybody else.
You're just waiting for him to put
driving through
those
those Everglades. Yep, just throw the arm around. Hey, hold on, boys. I got it. Like,
what song?
My day in the Glades, we had this down pat.
Okay, well, what song does Logan Sargent put on? Well, he probably has a fucking A-track, but if he has Spotify, what song does he put it on when he's riding dirt roads down there in North Florida? Probably.
Dude, it's got to be like Black Betty or some shit like that. Just chaos. Total chaos.
Go on. Or
when he's feeling nostalgic about his home state of Florida, he puts on a little John Anderson Seminole Wind about how everybody's tearing down the trees and training.
Blow Seminole. Yeah. Oh, that's
all the way up to Micanopy. Yeah, we're gonna ride these roads. So stood up on a cypress stump.
Yeah, dude.
Meanwhile, Logan, it's James. I need you to bring the car home.
Yeah. Is the car in one piece? No, I crashed. So
what was I thinking about? Just go listen to that song, that old 04 song.
Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue for now.
That's it.
So I feel bad that we're basically ending the recap of the Japanese Grand Prix just by shitting on Williams most of the time, but change your ways. Change your ways, pack a little bit more than 2 chassis. Like I get, like if you forget like a pair of boxers or your toothbrush when you travel, but how about you just pack 1 extra chassis, or maybe 2 or 3 extra chassis if you're going to drive like this. The people not driving like this were great. I mean, it's the 1-2 we know and love. Well, at least Pat knows and loves them. Max Verstappen finished first, so Australia was a fluke last race where he DNF'd. And then Checo came in second place, and then to finish out the podium in third, we had Carlos Sainz. So Carlos and Charles Leclerc had a little bit of a battle there. Lando was a part of it. I know that's what you're thinking, Chan.
I was gonna just praise and give a lot of action to Carlos. I mean, contract year. A lame duck season, and he's over here just absolutely schooling the golden boy, Chucky Leclerc.
Yeah, he's taking it easy on Chuck before.
I'm telling you,
that sandbagging motherfucker.
I'm telling you, Carlos is.
Yeah, I don't know where he goes though from here. Does he go to Mercedes?
I mean, I don't know. At this point, what we've seen from the last couple of races so far, at least the start of the season, initially we were like, oh, whenever Sergio gets booted from Red Bull, but Sergio's doing all that he can do. I mean, and I think Helmut even said that, like, if he finishes second place in the standings and is very like comfortably second, then there's no need to get rid of him. So I don't think the Red Bull seat's there. But I think he's going somewhere.
You just got to wait on Checo.
I think he's going somewhere on a one year stint before Audi takes over. Being that Carlos Sainz Sr. drives for Audi and Rally. But at this point, I mean, if you're Mercedes, you're jumping
them up for a year.
You're like, all right, yeah, Ferrari, you take Lewis Hamilton. We'll take him for a year.
Yeah. I mean, one's clearly outperforming the other, but
yeah,
it's no different than our grid rival. I mean, our grid rival. So we'll talk about who's leading now, but I want to talk about our last place finisher. So Chandler, I know this is your shtick and I'll let you cover who's winning, but dude, last place we've been calling out Drew Ferguson the 5th. Step your game up, dude. I know. So there's word on the street is that he hasn't looked at his lineup since the first time he made it. Well, that's just shit dedication. You know, I'm tired. We're not enabling you anymore. Do the shit. Yeah, shame. So if you don't, we're gonna let all the air out in your tires on a Sunday night to where you're screwed in the morning on Monday morning.
Look at it this way, Drew. Take some solace in this fact. You are only 143 points behind second to last place. And second to last place scored 143 more points than you last week. So it can be made up for 1 week. You can get your name out of the bottom. Just
or if he's even smarter.
It takes 10 minutes.
If he's smarter, he fucking deletes his account and makes a new one and he starts at the very even. But you know, we're not giving any free advice. That's been the motto of Grid Rival since the rip. Talk a little bit about who is now winning.
All right. Yeah. So we are not acknowledging the people that have not come forward to reveal their identity. So
those fucking bots. Yeah.
First place of those that we are acknowledging is none other than Mr. Patrick himself with 3507. And I'm thinking of the people that exist. No, of the people that exist, you got second best at the Japanese Grand Prix. So with 878 points. So you stayed in the lead amongst people we were recognizing.
No, he took over.
No, I apologize because Kevin Not Magnuson, a.k.a. Kevin Jones.
Yeah, so eat shit, loser.
Yeah. So,
you ain't first, you're last.
And then Sir Nicholas Villanacci dropped a place as well. So, but our big, let's see. So, yes. So, Patrick, you are now in the lead of people that we were recognizing. Drew,
and
last.
Drew sucks, yeah.
Recognizing. Let's see who had the worst points for this week. That would have been Mr. Ferguson. And the best points of this week would have been none other than Miss Mary Margaret of the people that we were recognizing, 890 points. So,
fluke, beginner's luck, a fluke.
You know, she stopped asking me for advice and figured it out on her own and has made up some ground and actually passed Mr. Jones. So, yeah. So, basically, round up your top 5 for the people we're recognizing: Patrick, Kevin Jones, Nick Villanacci, Chandler Avery, Mary Margaret, and Kyle. Jeff, you're just outside the top 5 of that. Chris, you are just outside the top 5, but you know, from I won't say last to first because Drew is falling behind a lot.
Yeah,
but Chris
it sucks.
From you to Patrick is 701 points. So
you can do it. You can do it.
A lot of time left, a lot of racing left, you know, a lot of ball game left, a lot of basketball left, a lot of baseball left, whatever you want to say, a lot of game left. So just don't be a Drew, because I actually do have the ability as a league commissioner set up is that if someone is inactive, I think for more than 3 straight races, I can kick them out of the league. So there's that
fucking
warning.
Power that is going to his head right now. I don't like
it. Well, probably not, because I do enjoy this.
But he's turning into the HOA.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely writes emails and says, "Oh, your mailbox white is a different
he's gonna
color
plant
white
a
than the
sign in
other."
your yard to
Absolutely
say to
not. We're
set
not
your light
HOA.
up.
No, see, I enjoy the slanderous moments of making fun of Sir Drew. So why would I kick out what brings me joy?
Fair. Well, what does not bring me joy? We already talked about the friggin' times for these races, on that side of the world. Well, the next race is the Chinese Grand Prix. So it's actually a sprint weekend, which is great because I'll only be watching the sprint race live. The sprint race is 419 at 11 p.m. So not bad.
Friday night
Uh,
at 11 p.m. That's some
yeah,
good Friday
not
night watching.
not bad at all. Then you have qualifying is the next day, so Saturday at 3 a.m. Ugh. And then the race is Sunday at 3 a.m.
So we have
So
sprint the sprint and then the qualifying like 2 hours after that then.
yeah. No.
Yeah, 419 at 11
Yeah.
p.m. and 420 at 3
Yeah.
a.m.
So
You got
it's
3 hours
like
later. I will not
three
be
hours,
watching
yeah.
qualifying live. You'll be
No.
lucky if you catch me watching a sprint live.
Yeah, no kidding. So we'll make our predictions and then we have a little bit of an announcement to make. So unfortunately I'm too tired to talk that shit. So we're just gonna move on. Chandler, you
Let me have my
successfully
spotlight.
Chandler, you successfully predicted this weekend. Pat, you did too. I only picked Max correctly. So right now in the lead, we have Chandler, then we have Pat, and then myself. I'm not
What's
going
the
to
point
update.
tally? How far off are we?
You want the points or you want to be surprised? You
Well,
tell
I
me.
mean,
All right. The points right now, we have Chandler at 14, Pat at 13, and then I'm at 11. So it's really anyone's game right now. So, but
a
right
lot
now,
of game left.
yeah,
Ball left.
but right now it's your game. So you get to make your podium picks for the Chinese Grand Prix. Who you picking?
We're going Max 1. We're going to go Carlos 2. I just think he's too hot, and Sergio 3. So that's the hill I'll rest on. A Red Bull, a Carlos sandwich, Red
Cool.
Bull. So
Pat, who you going with?
I'm gonna go with Max, and then I'm gonna go with Charles Leclerc, and then Checo. I
Okay.
think Charles gets a bounce back.
Well, I don't think anyone's touching the Red Bulls, so I'm gonna stick with the common theme here. Let's go Max, then Checo, and then I think Mr. Oscar Piastri is gonna come into play. So I think I might have picked that for the Australian Grand Prix or for the Japanese Grand Prix, but you know what? Eventually,
I don't
it's
know
gonna
the
hit.
order, but yeah. But you know
Yeah.
what's good, Kyle? I will say is that you talked about how in the past you always, every time you picked a McLaren, it always jinxed them. We will take the solid points finish
Yeah.
because
the
right
jinx-
now,
Jinx is in. Yeah.
all Mercedes and Aston are seeing from the McLaren is ass and elbows, baby. That's all they're seeing. We are
Eat my
leaving them in the
dust, red liver
Yeah, we're
lips. Yeah.
leaving them in the dust, and it's good to see.
Yeah. So I don't know. That kind of leads us. So Chandler, that kind of leads us to the next part. So I mentioned we had a little bit of an announcement. So right now we all have quite a bit going on between jobs, personal life, marriages, a pet velociraptor, trying to expand our business, whatever it might be. We all have a lot going on. So I think what we're going to end up doing is we are going to have one giant episode where it's going to be like a couple double headers in a row where we continue doing what we're doing. They're just going to be all released at the same time. So after the Chinese Grand Prix, there will not be an episode right away, but it will come. It will come. If you build it, they will come. And we built something, so we're going to keep doing it, but it will be paced out a little bit differently. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew what was going on, that there was no errors with the downloads or anything like that. So thank you all so much for listening. It truly is great. It lets three friends talk about the sport that we love so much. And whether there's 5 subscribers or a million, well, if there's a million, then we're doing this shit full time.
We're not monetizing
But
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. But right now, it's good just to hang out with you boys and F1. So
Absolutely.
that's where we're at. So just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for listening to Figuring Out the Formula. I'm Kyle, Chandler, and Patrick signing out. Thanks.